Good morning. I'm meteorologist Kevin Smith at the National Weather Service in Pocatello with another edition of your Southeast Idaho Weather Hazard Briefing. This is for Saturday, April 6th, 2019. We're going to take your forecast and break it into three components here. So first, we have a cold front that's crossing the region this morning. You can kind of pick out the general gist of that front here on the radar loop, with some light shower activity, rain and snow showers slowly moving to the east across a good chunk of the forecast area. Pretty hit and miss right now. A little bit more organized activity as you get down toward the Utah border and portions of the Caribou Highlands and Bear Lake region. But the cold front is moving into western parts of the forecast area, and all of this will continue to translate off to the east-northeast as we go through the morning hours, generally moving off into the state of Wyoming by lunchtime today, and that's going to give us a little bit of a lull and a little bit drier weather for a good chunk of the day across a large portion of the region. High temperatures today getting up into the mid to upper 50s here at lower elevations. You can see we shaved off just a few degrees over what we've seen the past couple days in the wake of that cold front across the region today. Strong west to southwest winds will be on the increase throughout the day behind that cold front. You can see some pretty widespread gusts here, 25 to 35 miles per hour across the region. May see even a few higher gusts at the higher peaks and ridge lines here across the central mountains, also up along the Montana border and portions of Lemhi County as well. So once we get that system out of here, that cold front moves out. Let's move on to component number 2, and we'll take a look at the water vapor satellite loop here. You may be able to pick out a little bit of this counterclockwise rotation here sitting out over the central Pacific Ocean, a little bit of a spin in the water vapor loop, and you'll notice a nice stream of moisture starting to develop on the mean flow here to the south of that low pressure system, and that's going to take aim at the northern Rockies as we head into later tonight and tomorrow. It's a little bit of an atmospheric river feature where we have a good westerly or southwesterly flow pumping some moisture in off the Pacific Ocean, and this is particularly going to take aim at portions of our central mountains in the western part of our forecast area. So going through tonight into the day on Sunday and Sunday night for this little atmospheric river event, we're going to call it. Here's a look at our projected QPF amounts. Very light across the majority of the region. I think showers are going to be really hit and miss. May see some pretty long periods of dry weather at lower elevations, including the Snake Plain and eastern Magic Valley. But you'll notice here in the western central mountains, we do pick up those heavier amounts on the order of a half an inch to an inch of liquid equivalent as we go through this roughly 36-hour period. Some of this moisture from this atmospheric river may actually end up going north of our forecast area, depending on which model you look at. But I think chances are better than not that the Sawtooths and some of the other nearby mountains, Titus Peak, etc., are going to see some of this heavier precipitation with that moist flow coming in. Not expecting major snow impacts anywhere except for the higher elevations here in the western central mountains. Not much accumulation down to Ketchum and Stanley, but we may see accumulations on the order of about 3 to 6, 3 to 7 inches as you get up particularly above 7 to 7,500 feet and focusing in on the Sawtooths here with that moisture stream coming in. Let's take a quick look here at one of our model projections to kind of see how this is all going to play out just for a visual. Starting at 7 a.m. this morning, you see those showers we talked about ahead of the cold front moving off toward the Wyoming border. As I step through here 1 hour at a time, drier weather for the middle part of the day. A few showers developing this afternoon across the region, but you can see they're really hit and miss, really light, not really widespread activity. Increasing moisture as we get toward 10 p.m. this evening, moving into the western central mountains as we start to get that flow of moisture taking aim at the region. As we go through the overnight, may see a few showers working across the rest of the area. Again, fairly isolated to scattered activity with the greatest moisture across the western central mountains. Here we are at noon on Sunday. Again, a little bit drier weather, particularly at lower elevations. We'll see some reinvigoration of that moisture and shower activity by the time we get into Sunday evening across the western central mountains, again with that continued atmospheric river of moisture out in that area. High temperatures on Sunday starting to warm up quite nicely compared to what we'll see in the wake of the front today. 60 for Pocatello, possibly mid-60s as we get out toward places like Burley and Twin Falls, upper 40s to low 50s for most of the rest of our population centers, and we'll continue to see those strong gusty west to southwest winds across the region, continuing during the overnight hours into Sunday across the higher peaks here in the mountains, but reinvigorating during the afternoon Sunday across the lower elevations. Now, component number 3, part 3 of our forecast here, we have a whole fresh storm system, a fresh trough of low pressure and cold front that's going to approach the region for Monday and Tuesday and bring widespread rain and snow shower activity. We're just not going to catch a break here. More precipitation in the forecast. Continued warm for those high temperatures on Monday, as you see displayed here. A little cooler on Tuesday as we'll finally start to work that cold front through the region, probably sometime during Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday night, moving from west to east across our forecast area with a slight reduction in temperature with that feature. Now, 48-hour totals here. These are 48-hour QPF totals, total amount of moisture for this next system Monday and Tuesday. You can see much higher amounts projected by our models based on the data we have this morning. Generally a quarter to half inch at lower elevations of the Snake Plain. Generally a half inch to possibly an inch as we get into the upper Snake Highlands, the Wyoming border, eastern Highlands, Bear Lake, southern Highlands, and even some isolated higher amounts than that in the western central mountains. We're certainly going to be adding some additional snowpack up at the higher elevations here, and the entire region stands to take a pretty decent hit with some widespread rain and snow shower activity. Temperatures still not going to support a lot of snow or travel impacts for the majority of the areas. We take a look at this snowfall map for that 48-hour period. But again, western central mountains, areas to the west of Chalice and Mackey, particularly above about 7 to 7,500 feet, looking for 6 to 12 inches of snowfall possible, depending on exactly how this moisture forecast plays out for this event on Monday and Tuesday. So certainly maybe some travel impacts for places like Banner Summit and Galena Summit and those high elevation highways across that region. Only flood product that we have in effect right now continues to be that flood advisory shown here for the Peekaboo area along Silver Creek. We have gotten some pictures from this area showing and confirming that there is some minor flooding ongoing. The flats and lowlands out toward Kilpatrick Bridge Road, areas west of Peekaboo will be susceptible. Also the lower lying areas and drainages as you come down through Peekaboo and head down toward the Littlewood River. This is still the only flood product we have out right now as far as watches, warnings, and advisories. We are still expecting rises on our creeks, streams, and rivers as we go into the future, and I know we've been saying that day after day here as we give you these outlooks. We really haven't seen a strong trigger to tip the scales and initiate a lot of flooding so far. We've generally had warm-ups and cool-downs coming every few days with some shots of precipitation that have been fairly light, and that's really helped keep the snowmelt and the runoff in check so far. Couple of the triggers we look for, if we can get multiple nights in a row with low temperatures remaining above freezing, overlapping where we have snow on the ground, that's certainly something we look for that can increase that runoff and keep that runoff going during the overnight hours. Again, so far, we've had a day here or there where some areas have managed to pull that off, but in general, temperatures still falling fairly cool at night and below freezing across the majority of the area. Another trigger we look for, big, heavy precipitation system coming through with a lot of areas getting 3/4 of an inch or an inch or more of liquid equivalent. Haven't seen that over the past couple weeks either, with most of these systems coming through producing a quarter or a half inch at a time. So we're really watching this Monday, Tuesday system. If it is as wet as some of our models are projecting, this could finally be that factor that will tip the scales and initiate a little bit more of a flood threat across our region. And certainly we're expecting rises on all our rivers. Now, Portneuf River is still the one that we're watching the closest, that's projected to get to bankful or possibly minor flood stage. Over here toward Lava Hot Springs at the Topaz Gauge, projected to reach those levels in the Sunday-Monday time frame and then continue to inch up a little bit, so minor flood threat may develop there. Marsh Creek and McCammon is doing okay right now, but certainly when we get to bankful along the Portneuf, for those who live in the region, a lot of times we see some of that water backing up upstream along Marsh Creek, and we get some of that lowland and agricultural flooding going in the McCammon and Ingham areas, and that's certainly something that we'll be keeping an eye on for early next week. Similar trend here in the projected hydrograph for the Portneuf River in the Pocatello area. Currently expected to get to around bankful in the Tuesday territory here, possibly reaching minor flood stage Wednesday or Thursday if our current forecast and precipitation amounts hold. and certainly that could initiate some flooding along the river, mostly low impact areas, but the park and trails down in the Sacagawea Park area currently certainly could see some impacts if this comes to fruition. Elsewhere, again, we'll be monitoring those rises, but right now, Portneuf River is the one we're watching the closest for possible minor flooding. So stay tuned as we continue to evaluate the data coming in on these systems and continue to monitor the flood potential across the region. That's it for your hazard briefing this morning. If you have any questions for us, please reach out and have a great day.